Hello and welcome to the Brand Therapist Podcast with your host, Yamilka Rodriguez. And today you just have me and we're going to talk about some really, really exciting things like tension, right? What is tension? How do we talk about tension? What all those things. So I'd like you to just sit back and relax on your favorite chair because we are going to have a therapy session about how to create tension with your brand and what tension is all about. And we're also going to talk about the science of tension. Going into this, I wanted to share with you the book. We're going to talk a little bit about the book because it's all in here, and I'm going to read a few things about the tension in here. Actually, we're on page 90 of the Brand Therapist book. And so let me read a little bit of this so we can get right into what tension is. So this is step 3, know tension. Remember, step 1 is know yourself. Step 2 is understand or know your superfan. And step 3 is know your tension. It takes confidence and guts to intentionally create tension. Seth Godin. The science of tension. I've studied the science of tension for the last 15 years. It was introduced to me by my dear friend Sabrina Jatan, one of the most intelligent women I know. While working at P&G, I hired Sabrina to help me with a project. We created many new concepts, and 6 months later, we created a language of our own. We would talk about things that nobody actually understood, but we understood it. We had a language. Over the years, I've taken those ideas and developed an entire methodology. Years after working with Sabrina, I met Torin, and we transformed that methodology to what we call now the FAME method. The FAME method starts with understanding your FAME character, the science of understanding yourself. Once you can internalize your FAME essence and truly live your life through your FAME character, you can move on to the next step, which is knowing your superfan. Remember, we talked about understanding your character, now your FAME character. If you still haven't been able to grasp your character, you can go to www.bespokebranding.io and find out your character. Or you can buy the book and find out your character too. Okay, so tension starts with your superfan. Just like when you begin any new relationship and start understanding the difference between you and your partner to learn a new language of communication. The difference between you is that you provide an opportunity to develop new habits, to create a new world of ideas. How do we use tension strategically and thoughtfully in marketing ourselves? Do you know your superfan? What's unique about your brand? How is it differentiated? Can you define your brand essence? Build tension, and finding your superfan is easy, but you need to do it consciously. We talked about this. This is all about being conscious about what we do and with the method that holds on to the brand. Okay, so before we go into really deeply understanding tension, I want to give you an example of somebody who does it really, really well. Okay, I'm going to keep reading here. Apple, the master of tension building. Why does Apple keep leading and growing while others follow and copy? Because Apple has a clear, defined brand character, and they know how to create powerful chemistry by building tension with its superfan. When we build a brand from scratch, the brand needs a personality and personal values to represent what the founder believes in. Developing all this usually happens unconsciously. If the company culture is strong enough, it will withstand any storm. If not, it will slowly die. Now, if the brand is an accumulation of individuals and they don't define it well and it stands for nothing, then before it expands, it will fail to attract superfan and slowly dissolve. Therefore, we like Apple because this tension is palpable in the company and we want the energy in our lives. We have already said that Apple behaves as an outlaw and it continues to disrupt and revolutionize every single industry it touches. So why is an outlaw brand making a gallery of beautiful artwork? Simple. Because the opposite of the outlaw is the creator, and the creator makes beautiful and innovative artwork. Because the company's fame essence strategically communicates in a way that it attracts their opposite. Companies that connect with the heart and soul of their audience naturally do this. Apple's Creators Gallery posts and promotes beautiful disruptive crafters' work rather than being overly disruptive. Apple focuses on celebrating others' work and creativity in their gallery. Apple does this intuitively very well. They will give their superfans a platform to showcase themselves and play with Apple's tools on Instagram. Apple's fame character is the outlaw, breaks convention and revolutionizes, and their opposite is the creator, perfectionist and precision. Instead of using outlaw language, Apple builds tension by adding actions that appeal to the creator. All right, so let me unpack this a little bit before we continue on to reading this. What does that mean? Okay, so let me explain. Each of us have a particular character, and let's continue with the example of the outlaw. And I have my amazing cards right here. And so if we look at the outlaw in particular, and we look at their words, let's look at the value words. They're disruptive, they're bold, they're spirited, they're risk-taking, and they're rebellious. Okay, so how do we use that? Here they are. How do we use that to build tension? Okay, that is our brand, right? So if we write in that way, we're going to get a little bit of a monotone, right? So as one of my professors said, we might be playing in the ego a little too much. Okay, so we want to build that tension, that relationship within the opposite. So the opposite of the outlaw is the creator. And so when we look at the creator brand right here, their words are inventive, rigorous, thoughtful, precise, and masterful. As you can see, they're kind of not completely opposites, but they're different, right? Look at disruptive versus inventive, bold versus rigorous, spirited versus thoughtful, risk-taking versus precise, rebellious versus masterful. But there is a beautiful thing that happens when we communicate with tension, okay? So imagine yourself building a story that's bold and rigorous, that's spirited and thoughtful, that's risk-taking and precise, that's rebellious and masterful. That's where the interest comes in. That's where things start to change. And that's where you create more interest. And that's why tension is important. Okay? Let me finish reading here a little bit more about the tension so you can kind of grasp the concept. We'll go into it a little bit further. Tension is a beautiful thing. Tension is a beautiful thing and should not be ignored. It is one of the most significant ways to cultivate and catapult your customers' relationships forward. It is essential to be aware of the tension between you and your customer, to play on it, and not to ignore it. Now, when intense tension will arise, and acknowledge its existence, so remember where your superfan is coming from. Tension is built when we stretch our brand toward its opposite, in which we create a differentiation in the marketplace. Building tension is the secret sauce to sustaining clients. All your clients will not be your perfect client, right? We know that. But when you speak and act out of the right fame character and develop your superfan, you will set the bar so that when a client who is not optimal approaches you, you can say, you're not interested. You can say you're not interested in talking to them, right? So that's really what it's all about. I love one of the things that I found, and as I was a designer, is that we want to make sure that we are loved and are hated, right? That's a really important tension right there. That we find some people that really, really love what we do, and then we have some people that really, really hate what we do. We have to have those. And I think when we go out there, we think that everybody needs to love what we do. And no, not necessarily. Because what happens is that you'll take on clients that are difficult and don't love everything that you do. And you find yourself struggling and making them happy, and they're never going to be happy. And so you shouldn't probably have taken them from the beginning. And so, but when it's beautiful when a client just loves everything that you do, and not just because you're great at what you do, but you can have that symbiotic relationship, right? That they know that they can't do what you do, but there's something that is attracting them to you. And it works the opposite way too. You're also attracted to them in an interesting way. And that's why you find yourself working with them, is because the attraction or the tension builds both ways. Okay? So remember when we were talking about the example of the outlaw and the creator, right? So a lot of people ask me, why is tension important, right? Why can't we just stick to our brand and our tone of voice? Because what happens when we are just one particular thing is that it's hard to differentiate ourselves. It's hard to bring interest. I'm not saying that you shouldn't. Like, it's really important now, don't get me wrong, to really fully be authentic and be yourself. Now, don't get me wrong. To really bring tension into our life, it means that we need to balance who we are with the opposite. And that is what gives us freedom and experiences and love for what we do. So let me go back to explaining exactly how you do this. Now, if you buy the book, The Brand Therapist, it's all in there. You have all the 12 archetypes, so you get to know you. There's also a chapter about your opposite, so you get to know your superfan. And so you can see the differences between your particular character and your superfan. Okay. And then what I would love for you to do, I have some exercises on here, is I'm going to read these to you so you know some of the things that you can do is take your fame character and write 5 values that define your personal brand. Take your superfan and write 5 values that define them. Write 5 ways you can add tension with your brand. And what I mean by tension is, how can you use your superfan in your particular values and drive interest? Write stories about those words, right? Like we said, disruptive and inventive, bold and rigorous, but you're going to have your own words. Write 5 things that differentiate you from your competitors based on your fame character. Right? So this is really important. I was working with a client the other day, and we were talking about, I loved how she was able to really take herself seriously with her brand and say, I'm different than my competitors. I see my competitors are being super ruler, kind of like high end, high touch. I want to take a different approach to my competitors. And that's really what it's about, right? If she wants to bring a little bit more curiosity, more adventure, she's an explorer with a touch of performer, like super fun. Like all her competitors are more clinical based, more like about the specifics and getting into the details. But she's more about the experience and bringing experience into her life. And that's really what it is. At times I know that when we build a brand, sometimes we build a brand with a set of things in mind, or we try to kind of imitate our competitors or do similar things than our competitors do. But the reason why you look at your competitors is not to copy them. It's to actually differentiate yourself from them. Okay. And another exercise is write 5 things that differentiate you from your competitors based on your fame character. Write 5 things your superfan loves. And write 5 messaging strategies based on how you define your fame character and your superfan. Okay, so really, it's all about building that intention of tension, right? Understanding the science of tension. Tension is what makes the world go round. Now, I'd like you to also look at if you have a partner or a partner that you've had in the past, like what made the relationship interesting? Were you guys different than one another? Most of us are, because sometimes when we're the same, it doesn't last that long. And I'm not saying that you're not going to attract a like, right? You're going to be attracted to people like you. That is completely normal and what happens every single time. But when you build this tension, you attract opposites and you learn so much from them. And that's really what's important. And that's how we get to purpose, is to really get into our super fan. And why I say super fan is I don't want you to look at all your clients. I want you to look at your super fan clients, the ones that love everything that you do. And that's why it's so important. I'm not saying you're going to get other clients. Apple gets other clients. For example, I love Apple. I have everything Apple. But I am not an early adopter. I don't buy it when it comes out into the market. I wait a couple years, 3 years, sometimes even 4 years before I actually get a new product, right? So I am not their opposite. But I like their products. I like what they do. I like what they stand for, right? And you're going to have people just like that too, where you're going to have super fans and you're going to have others that stand a little bit farther apart from you. And you're also going to have people that are like you, okay? But people like you are going to already connect with you because you exude a certain brand. Your job is to connect with the opposite, understanding the opposite, understanding your client fully, servicing your client. Now, I don't want you to turn into your client. All right, let's get that really straight. Don't turn into your client. Just delight them, offer them, because they're going to want you to be you. Okay, and they're going to be them. But the whole purpose of this is building empathy and you being able to step into their shoes and you being able to you need to let them know that you get them and that you're treating their business uniquely and different than all your other clients, right? That's why you offer high touch offers and services. because you want to make sure that they understand that you're customizing it for them. Now, when I do this with my clients, it's really interesting because I'll build this persona profile completely for them so they can see it, visualize it. We get deep into understanding their daily life, what they're proud of, what their fears are, right? We go into this persona, this individual, how old they are, where do they shop, like all these things. We get really in depth with our superfan profile. So we build it out. We really want to understand them because we want to put them front and forward every time we're designing, whether it's copy or message or anything like that, because we want to make sure that they understand that we are serving them. Now, what happened with this particular client was that I usually build just one persona profile because that's kind of the mix of their primary and secondary archetype. But what was different this time was that their primary was so much their client and not really their secondary. So we are going to build two profiles because she really has two different sort of clients. And that may happen too. And so really being able to guide your intuition and understand where they're coming from so you're not cookie cutting your clients is really critical to grow your business. And that's what's going to differentiate you from everybody else. So I hope that building tension is something you'll continue to do moving forward. If you have any questions at all about building tension, please feel free to reach out to me at yamilka@bespokebranding.io. Remember, it ends in IO, and the website is Bespoke Branding, BESPOKE branding.io to take the quiz. Thank you so much for listening to the Brand Therapist podcast, and I'll see you on the next show.